What is up YouTube, and welcome back to another WildRift video. It's time for another tier list, and this patch has changed only the tiniest amount of things, but don't worry, it is time for the most accurate tier list in the high elo bracket in WildRift. As per usual, I'm gonna make it very simple. The pick of the patch, then the S tier for meta, the A tier for off meta, and the B tier for stay away from these champions. Okay, but first let me introduce you to my partners, The Zoo. If you want to get skins, cheap, digital goods, anything, check out the description below. Click the link, use code KIRKS, and enjoy saving. You save so much money, you will never want to go back. Anyway, let's start with the Baron tier list. First off, we have Aatrox. Is an absolute abomination of a champion, be it in the Baron lane or the jungle. He's an absolute demon king. For the recently buffed champions, we have Darius, who is a conditional pick in the Baron lane. Conditional, keep that one in mind. Fiora, who wins most, if not all the matchups over time easily. And then we have the two most strongest champions already for the top lane. Other champions that are super insane as a flex pick or just a champion that is very good blind is Rumble. Rumble and Gwen are severely underrated for whatever reason, but again, within the S tier, all of these champions are very powerful. But if you want to take the weakest champions within the S tier, it's probably going to be Ryze, which sounds funny, yeah I know, and Gragas. These two champions within the Baron lane are by far the weakest champions of all the meta champions. At least Riven has the superior pressure. As for the A tier, as I said again, it's off meta and the Ambassador rework isn't here yet, so we have to wait for that one to drop and then we can make a proper power rating or power assessment on her. For the B tier, stay away, just don't touch them. For the tank tier, Poppy is still the best champion there because she wins every single matchup, but there's one champion that completely breaks the game in the sense of having to play the game. And this is Garen. Garen can force into any matchup in this video game to start with a Ruby Crystal and Second Wind and walk into the wave with a third ability. Then he just spins around there and clears the wave and just completely plays non-interactive, and if you play to trade with him, you'll most likely lose unless you're Fiora. And even then you have to be careful. But again, this is a big problem because then you have to wait to outscale Garen, which isn't a problem in itself, but given the context of solo queue, your entire map might be ablaze or completely aflame, like it's completely burning down. And then you have to just be like, okay, what do I do here? Because Garen just stonewalls you, which is the worst thing. Top lane is the most stonewall lane that exists in the game, where people just have champions that have such enormous stat stakes that you cannot really do anything until you've outscaled them or completely outscale them. But even the most demon on Garen can clear the wave and just walk away. It's borderline impossible to int on this champion, and if you see people int on this champion, just ask them, how is this even possible? For the jungle department, we have Riven as the absolute queen of the jungle department. Other champions that are beyond broken in the jungle department are Lilia, Ambessa still, Kayn is insane, Viego is insane, like all the champions within the S tier are insane pickups for the jungle department and completely outshine every other champion within other tiers. And it's absolutely bonkers how much of a power differential between these champions exists. Now, let's look at the A tier. For example, Evelynn has been buffed. Darius has been buffed, yes. But for example, Darius is still a conditional champion. He was good in the jungle, but not as good as the other options within the S tier. Like, for example, you could, if you want to replace Shyvana with Darius, I think that's probably the most fair assessment you can do. Because, for example, me, I haven't seen many Shyvanas. I still think Shyvana is good, but fundamentally speaking, you can pick the same champions in the same instances. But other champions within the A tier just perform a lot worse comparatively. Olaf feels very good conditionally, all the champions within the A tier are just so much more conditions that you have to think about. And if there's one thing that I want to put lower, it's probably Fizz into the B tier, but yeah. There's just one thing you shouldn't play, it's Fiddledingle, the Fiddlesticks champion. You might see the win rate on China going crazy, but I beg of you, this champion just doesn't do anything. And I say this to protect you from picking this champion because your life will be miserable if you play against any human being because this champion is ass and doesn't do damage, I'm sorry. F in the chat for every Fiddlesticks main out there. Anyway, now over to the tank department, Amumu. So here we have Amumu as the easiest champion in the jungle, being a tank, and yet the most potent champion, because people tend to make really big mistakes, especially around Scuttlecrab, and if the people on the enemy team pick a carry champion that they think they can deal with the Amumu early game, they just get ran over and die, and then it's just over, because the tank Amumu doesn't really have to rely on farming so much. He can just go for play and will most of the time work because he's so durable, yet does a lot of damage. In the high levels of play, Amumu is not that broken, because people can, maybe, potentially think about that one and don't just run into him and die, but yeah, that's another story. As for the S tier champions, all these champions are more than just viable. Of course, you see here, okay, why is the Mordekaiser and Via Nautilus in the tank tier? and Nunu as well. You can play these champions as a carry or like as a tank. Both works. It's just like, it's space reasons, let's just be honest here. But yeah, like these champions are still within the S tier. If there's one champion that is game breaking, it could be Shen because of the global pressure and people completely underestimate it. And if it's a sleeper pick, it's J4. Like, he's really slept on. As for the A tier champions, they are completely out of the picture with the exception of maybe Mundo, which I've seen played sometimes. But again, I personally haven't encountered him too many times. I haven't seen him as an issue outside of being fed in the Baron lane. But yeah, you can definitely take a look at the S tier and be just completely happy with these meta champions. As for the mid lane, you'll see the biggest changes towards, for example, the Mage tier. I've put Ryze 1 tier lower, and the reason is Ryze cannot function into any control mage. Like, he literally can't. The nerfs have, on paper, not done too much to him, but the problem is, like, even before, people walked into him and just died. But if people properly space, the champion just doesn't do anything to these long-range control mages. Like, anything that severely outranges him is so dangerous for the champion. The probably weakest out of all the S tier champions here is going to be Victor, unironically. However, the champion still has insane value just because of one fact, or two facts actually. It's his early game, the level 1 with empowered attack, and his first ability, which is crazy damage, and his late game scaling into just pressing ultimate and dying and still having value if the ultimate gets reset. Oh, and why I believe that Orianna is the best mage is because you can blind pick her like every single game compared to other champions. You cannot blind pick Ryze because then you get Orianna slapped into your face and you can't play the game, you just cry. A tier champions are off meta or conditional champions. B tier champions don't touch. I've been playing a lot of Kayle in mid lane on stream in Challenger recently, and it's a tough life. It is definitely a tough life, and if you're curious how, like, to see how it goes, feel free to watch the VODs or just catch me live, and I'll show you that life is truly difficult if you play a weak champion in a lane, where it's actually playing against other champions that are good. As for the Mage tier, if you're wondering, Ahri just got another buff. Why is Echo still a buff? Okay, Echo still has the same problematic that Garen has. You can just insta-push the wave and be completely annoying. You can push the wave with Q1 into another Q and then just walk into the enemy jungle and get a kill. It is absolutely abysmal in terms of experience for the enemy laner and the enemy jungle, and until this is fixed, he remains there. The next thing is Nocturne in mid lane in the S tier. Relatively questionable pick. I haven't seen him too many times recently because the champion is still permabanned because the nerf is not enough. But even before, like, he was very good in mid lane because he just gets priority and just goes side lane and ults there and just completely kills everyone. That is still the fact as it stands. As for the A tier, non-meta, all these champions are way better in the jungle, so you'd rather stay away from them unless it's very conditional to pick them up. As for the other tier, you've seen Corki got a nerf, -4 base hit or whatever it was, and a little bit damage on the third ability, but if you watched the stream, you very much saw that this champion is beyond broken and still by far the best, even better than Yasuo. I know Yasuo got buffed, but in the past, Yasuo won every mage matchup anyway, and he won against every mid lane AD carry anyway, so nothing fundamentally has changed. However, once he hits you with anything, you die, unless you were in the past a defensive boost AD carry, but now you actually just get one shot. So you have to just play better in the future, which is a problem because Yasuo can be very annoying to deal with, but still, it's still the same as in the old times, and Corki just does a better job at carrying on a way easier fashion, sorry. All the other champions within the S tier fundamentally still function the same way, but there's one champion that I'm not very certain about anymore. It's going to be Sivir mid. And I might want to put Garen a little bit higher because he's such a brutal neutralizer. I need to play more Sivir mid games to get like a proper feeling, but yeah. And if you're wondering, why the hell is Zilean only in A tier? Zilean is not designed to be a mid lane champion because he doesn't have the wave clear capabilities, because you cannot attach the bomb to hit the entire wave. You can only hit the first part or the second part of the wave, unless you hold the wave manually. You just walk up so they clump up together and then you can do it, but even then you might get completely outtraded by the enemy champion and then you're suffering. So this champion doesn't have wave clear, which is a big problem. And yeah, B tier, well, you know how it goes. For the AD carry tier list, we still have the same old. Corki still the best carry among Ezreal and Varus, of course. With the new changes, we see Draven and Samira higher because they've gotten even more powerful, and here's the reason why. So, buffing any of these early game champions that are reliant on early game snowball is very dangerous because they'll just snowball the entire game until you just get completely stunned. If you buff or nerf a scaling champion, like for example Corki, he doesn't really have to care about this because he doesn't have to win. A Samira not winning lane is detrimental to her experience. A Draven not winning lane is detrimental to his experience. A Corki not winning lane doesn't matter because the champion scales regardless. But if there was one champion within the S tier that would put down one rank, it could be Kai'Sa, but Kai'Sa is still very favored in the meta in terms of champion pickup. The moment an enchanter is open, you'll just pick up the Kai'Sa, go for the tank on it build, and you can play like the absolute biggest pig on the planet, and it doesn't matter, you just kill everyone anyway. But the big three are going to be Ezreal, Corki, and Varus. And if you play with an army or Milio, just pick up the Lucian and see what this champion can do. Within the S tier, rather stay away from them, they're a lot weaker than the S tier, and the B tier is just absolutely no-go zone. You can always argue, but the enchanter with the Vayne experience. But again, Vayne has big problems in the game. By the time she kills a singular tank, there's 15 other people jumping her and one-shotting her. As for the mages, previously I had Ryze there, but in the end, Ziggs is just way easier to play and has easier impact than Ryze, because a good Ryze player requires like a little bit of understanding about positioning, spacing, whereas Ziggs just throws bombs from Narnia, which is, well, obviously quite the easy thing. One champion I've put up from the A tier is Orianna in exchange for the Karma. And I think this is going to be fine. I don't really think it's too bad. What you can argue though as well is Morgana one higher, but the problem is Morgana has really bad wave clear early game and gets pushed in brutally compared to other mages. So I'm really reluctant on doing so, but Morgana has great scaling and is super easy to execute. So if there was one champion on the A tier that I would put S tier, it would be Morgana. Now let's move on to the support tier list. We have Nautilus as the best engaged support. We have a few changes here. For example, the Trash Boss have not really done anything for the champion. It's still the same problem as before, he doesn't get tanky enough and he doesn't do enough damage. All the champions within the S tier are simply better, with maybe the exception of J4, which is too conditional. But yeah, there's a big power difference between all of these champions, but Galio as well as Gragas are more favored in competitive play, but outside of competitive play they don't really provide you with as much as the other champions. The by far best protect champion is going to be Zilean. The problem with this champion is if you cannot break the champion, in the sense of winning lane brutally against him, this champion automatically scales and completely nullifies every pressure in the game because he has a revive on a super low cooldown, while the ability to just go on level 1 into the double bomb, into actually pressuring the lane with the proper rune setup. Now, if Zilean is on the winning team, then it's barely winnable. It's impossible to win against that one because the fat person can play however they want to do with a free revive and a lot of crowd control. Zilean on the losing team feels utterly useless, so that's the difference. But still, the scaling is really dangerous. As for the other champions within the S tier, they're just so much better than anything in the A tier and the B tier. So yeah, if you want to pick up these champions, the weakest of all of these champions in the S tier is probably going to be Soraka, which sounds comical to me, but yeah, Soraka is probably the weakest by far, but again, probably also the easiest to pilot of all the other champions. As for the carry tier, Karma is still the absolute GOAT. This champion is absolutely unbalanced, and you've seen me play it on stream. It's disgustingly OP if played right and in the right conditions. And the only champion that realistically wins lane by outstatting her early game is Nautilus. Crazy champion design, by the way. All the other champions within the S tier are less reliable or just simply weaker, but some have the underdog bonus, like for example Zyra. People don't know what this champion does, so the damage input can be or output can be really insane. As for champions within the A tier, I'm sorry, you know my Swain hate in this game, it is what it is. As for Brand, you can make an exception here. If you play him well with Phase Rush and understanding his potential in good drafts, which is conditional again, conditional, keep that in mind, then his champion is quite powerful. And that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check out my partner's description below. The Zoo, use code KERKS, and have a beautiful rest of the day.